Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to another episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Wednesday evening, which of course means one thing. It is match preview showtime. And this Saturday could not be any bigger for both clubs as Gillingham take on Morecambe. Gills currently sit 19th in Sky Bet League 2 and our visitors sit 23rd. So it is, if not yet one, pretty much approaching a relegation six-pointer. And I'm pleased to say, to discuss all things Morecambe, I'm joined by a friend of the channel now. I think it's fair enough to say that. General nice guy. The voice of Morecambe FC on the radio is, of course, Dave Salmon. Dave, welcome back to the channel first and foremost. Aside from the football, I hope you're not too bad.
We're not too bad, Matt. I think as we spoke off air, we're staring over the precipice together, aren't we? So whether either of us actually fall off the edge of the cliff, we'll wait and see, I suppose. But yeah,
or choose to jump,
right.
or choose
Life's
to
okay.
jump.
Or yeah, whichever way you want to put it, really. But life's not too bad, thank you, Matt. Yeah, we're doing all right. I mean, it's just the stuff on the pitch kind of ruins it a bit, doesn't it? At the moment, that's the bad news.
Yeah, it does keep getting in the way of having fun, doesn't it? Let's have a quick look at recent form because that's always a good point to start. Well, I say a good point. Gills have taken 3 points from the last 18 available. That's come in the way of defeats to Notts County, Barrow, and most recently Fleetwood on Tuesday evening, and draws against Walsall, Crewe and Carlisle. We currently sit 19th with 35 points from our 32 games. For Morecambe, they've won 2 games, but they've lost more games. So who's more miserable? Nobody knows. 6 points in the last 18 come in the way of victories against Fleetwood Town, ironically, and also Accrington Stanley. Defeats against Newport, Notts County, Doncaster and Walsall last Saturday means that it's 6 points from last 18 for Derek Adams' men as they sit 23rd with 26 points from 33 games. Dave, I've written down, I'm not even sure where to start with this one, to be quite honest. You're marginally better off for points over the last half a dozen, but you've lost more games than us. It doesn't scream thriller, does it?
No, not in the slightest. I think a couple of games ago, I would be saying we would absolutely take a draw. Now, despite your terrible run without a win, which terrifies me and gives me a little bit of hope, perhaps in equal measure, actually, because it's got your first one in 14, a scrappy 1-0 written all over it. But at the same time, I think, well, you've not got that winning habit. So, positive hat on and all that. We'll go there and we always have a good battle against John Coleman's teams and da-da-da. So I'm a bit on the fence in that regard. In terms of our form on paper, I think it's fair to say that we are playing better than our form suggests.
Okay.
And the main reason I say that is because in all games, and that includes we played top of the table Walsall last weekend, we ended up losing the game 2-0. Mostly because we had a player sent off just after half-time, a central defender, Reece Williams, who will be suspended for the game on Saturday. So that's a blow for us at the back because he's been terrific for us this season. But 10 men for the best part of a half against top of the table, we were always going to be up against it, which should have been probably 2 or 3 goals clear, though, before we got reduced to 10. So that's been the heart of the problem, not just in the last few games. All season long, we cannot get the ball in the back of the net. We create chance after chance. We have lots of possession in the fight. Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Absolutely. We were talking on my podcast, weren't we, about how fewer goals you scored in seasons gone by. It's so frustrating. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is. Doncaster, a couple of games ago, we had 16 shots. We had 1 on target out of 16, and that was in the last couple of minutes from 25 yards through straight at the keeper. We did the same again against Walsall. We were clean through 1-on-1, put it over the bar. We missed easy chances. We're getting into good positions. We're not finishing the chances. It's as simple as that. That's not to say we're not completely toothless up front. We've recruited a couple of forward players in the January transfer window. So we are a bit better equipped in the final third, but it's just the goals, the lack of goals that have absolutely killed us at the moment. It's not that we're not competing in games, because we are. We're not really being played off the park by anybody. It's just those fine margins. It's not putting the ball in the back of the net. And then we concede a sloppy goal, or on Saturday against Walsall, we have a man sent off, pulled it back. It was the Dogs' overall, had to go. And they scored directly from the free kick. The wall separated and it went into the corner, and that was the end of that one. So it's those fine margins, which gives me hope to an extent. But the games are starting to run out now, and that makes Saturday, whereas just a couple of games ago I'd have absolutely have said, yeah, that'll be. I'll take a boring 0-0 all day long, not a problem. I think it's an absolute must-win for us now.
Yeah, and it's weird for us because we can probably sit here and say that a draw wouldn't be a disaster, given it maintains the gap to yourselves, and you've played extra games, and it's another one ticked off. But I think just the general feeling amongst the Gills fan base is we can't just keep relying on everyone else being worse than us. This group have got to stand up and be counted and do it for themselves. But it's like a mirror image. You look at our last 3 games. So last night against Fleetwood, 14 shots, only 5 on target. Carlisle, 14 shots, 3 on target. Crew, 19, only 5 on target. I think we've hit the crossbar 3 times in the last 3 games. But as I mentioned after the defeat to Fleetwood, when it happens for so long, and this isn't just a season-long thing for Gills, this has been going on for the best part of half a decade now, averaging around a goal a game, which you're not going to be anything more than a lower mid-table team with a record like that in front of goal, despite having a good defensive record. At what point does saying that you're unlucky just disguise ineptitude, unfortunately, in terms of recruitment and the players that are on the pitch? It's just a fine line, and I think because it's happened for so long now, I'd say that ours is more ineptitude rather than just solely bad luck.
Well, we obviously have budget restraints, which perhaps you guys don't have. And,
no.
you know, I mean, we would love owners like the Gallinsons, to be honest with you. We'd love owners like the Piatics in charge of Carlisle United and anybody, really, to be honest with you. But when you are fishing in quite a shallow pool of players, shall we say, or you're not shopping at the the executive supermarkets because that you get what you can afford with the money that you've got, you have who you have. And I think we've built a squad, and more to the point, Derek Adams has built a squad that is competitive. It is a League Two squad. It's probably a lower bottom half, comfortably retaining AFL status squad by and large. There have been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of recruitment, of course, but that's the same every season. It's just getting the ball in the back of the net. We're a little bit better now. We've got we're relying on 2 players who were on loan at Barrow in the first half of the season to score the goals that are going to keep us in League Two, which I suppose, given the rivalry between the 2 teams, is a little bit the wrong way around, really. But Andy Dallas is one to look out for. He's scored twice on his debut. Got him on loan from Barnsley. Scored twice on his debut when we beat Fleetwood. And he's not scored since in 5 games. But the one thing I like about Andy is he's always looking to get a shot off. And it's not quite worked out for him. He gets in the good positions. And he's not quite got that that third goal or scoring in his second game yet. But here's a throw. Got Jed Garner as well from Barrow, who I suspect will start as part of a forward 3 on Saturday. He's a much better player than his overall career goal scoring record suggests. Gets in the good areas. He's a bit of a fox in the box, so I'm quite content with that. But that's not translated into putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's the one thing that needs to change. And hopefully Saturday's the game that it does just that.
Another similarity, Andy Dallas, change it to Elliot Nevitt for Gillingham, who's like, if awards were handed out just for sheer willingness to run yourself into oblivion every game, then he'd be top scorer in the Premier League. But I mean, scored a really good goal against Fleetwood to put us in front on Tuesday. Unfortunately, we then give away 2 soft goals again, and it meant nothing essentially at the end of the day. But it was great for Elliot to get one, and he's had one off the line, which would have got it back to 2-2, I believe. It sort of just hit a combination of the defender and the keeper. He's had one off the underside of the bar at Carlisle last weekend. He missed a penalty against Bromley. So again, it comes back to fine lines, doesn't it? You could be sitting here talking about a couple of strikers who've got 5 or 6 goals instead of 1, 2 or 3. But the old saying, when you're down the bottom, you don't get any luck, and when you do, it's bad. And if it rains, it pours, and all that type of thing. But again, they're cliches that we can just chuck around. At the end of the day, both teams have got to be better if they want to improve their league position.
I'll put it like this, Matt. I'll put it like this. We have lost 12 times in League Two this season, 1-0. 12. And that tells you everything you need to know about where our issues lie. We're well in games. And a lot of those 1-0 defeats have been against teams in the automatic promotion places, or certainly in the top 8-9 clubs who will be thinking they've got a good chance of getting into League Two. We convert just 2 of those 1-0 defeats into a 1-0 victory and another couple into draws. Suddenly we're 5 points outside the relegation zone. We're very similar to you. And yes, we're not home and dry in staying up, but things look a lot rosier. And that's why I still have a little bit of hope, really, that we can turn it around. But got to get the ball in the back of the net. Come on, lads. We just have to
No,
start scoring goals.
you can say the same about us. I mean, we've only conceded 35 in 32 games, so defensively, there's no issue generally. We've had one thrashing against Barrow under Coleman. The rest have been single goal defeats, and I think under Mark Bonner, we lost 3-0 at home to Bromley, but aside from that, it was generally single goal defeats. You had 10 goals to our scored column, and suddenly you're looking at another 6-7 points, and then you're sort of mid-table, and the rest of the season looks a bit more relaxed than it will be at the moment. But to use another cliche, if your aunt had she'd be your uncle. So anyway, you've mentioned Jed Garner. They're likely to line up in a 4-3-3, and that was something I wanted to talk about. Looking at your last sort of 5 or 6 games, it looks like it's been a variation of that, or a 4-2-3-1. So it's a 4-3-3 essentially. It's just slightly different people in slightly different positions in that 4-3-3. I'm assuming you've mentioned you've got one centre half unavailable due to suspension, but you won't go away from that, will you? In this game Saturday afternoon?
I'd be very, very surprised. We haven't got the. I know obviously John Coleman loves playing a back 3/back 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll match up. I would be amazed, partly because we've got Reece Williams out suspended. He's a big miss for us at the back. There's no question about that. Jamie Stott, who we got from Halifax last season, who was a mainstay of our defence, left-footed central defender. He was a mainstay until about half a dozen games ago. He made not an absolute howler, but he was just on the wrong side of his man against Newport County, and let the ball go over his head from a diagonal ball, and they scored, and they won the game 2-1. And Derek Adams dropped him after that game, put him on the bench. He's come back a couple of times. He started the game before last, and then he was put back on the bench again. So I'd expect Jamie will start. Well, he'll have to start because in the absence of Reece, there isn't really anybody else. So 4-3-3, we have evolved from a 4-2-3-1, and when we were 4-2-3-1, we were just one striker / out and out forward, and then a number 10 and 2 wingers. This is more of a proper 4-3-3, if you will, with a triangle base in midfield, 2 number 6s and a number 8, if you will, and then a forward 3, which is usually 2 more mobile players and one of our bigger lads up front. So I'd expect it to be Andy Dallas and Jed Garner, and then one of either Lee Angol or Marcus Dackers, both big lads. Obviously, Lee Angol's 6'5", I think. Marcus Dackers is 6'7". The problem is, going back to scoring, Lee Angol's missed a couple of sitters. He scored a nice header a couple of games ago, but he's also been quite culpable. Marcus has got 1 goal in 33 games this season, and that tells you everything you need to know. That doesn't tell the complete story about how he's played, but if you're a striker, if you're playing the final third, you've got to put the ball in the net, and that is where our problem is lay. So yeah, a 4-3-3, Matt, I would say. I think we'll play quite narrow. We'll try and get it forward and look for the flick downs and go from there.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we mentioned previous occasions, you know what you get with Derek Adams, regardless of whether he's got the best 11 players on the pitch technically or the worst. You know that it'll be a team that's set up to work hard and play for each other and be willing to run for 90, 95, 100 minutes to get whatever you can. And I think, and going back to your point about the amount of 1-0 defeats, when you played Morecambe that you've been in a game, I think it's fair to say.
Well, one of the 1-0s was against yourselves, Matt, wasn't it, earlier in the season? So,
when the sun was shining and we knew what the top of the table looked like.
We had green stuff on our pitch and everything. I mean, I would say you were dead lucky on that. And that's the other thing, we're not had any luck. You go all the way back to our reverse fixture, way back at the end of August. You remember how the winning goal went in just as much as I do, Matt. Jack Nolan out on the right-hand side, he absolutely shanked his cross. It should have gone way out for a goal kick.
Crossfield ball to the left-hand side.
It wasn't a magnificent crossfield ball to the left-hand side. It was a rosette. He actually turned and kicked the ground in frustration, if you look at the replay, because he overhit the ball. It caught in the wind, dropped right on the byline. You kept it in, recycled it, you tapped it in and lost 1-0. And that's the kind of luck we've had for most of the season, to be honest with you.
That was probably the peak of Jack Nolan's season for us as well. So that tells you all you need to know about our recruitment. But I'm saying that in jest if anyone's listening before I get jumped on. One player that stood out, just looking at stats, obviously, and you can tell me about him in terms of the eye test and that type of thing, Dave, is Ben Tollett. Looks to have had a good season. Looking at websites and apps that I use, averaging just under 7 in terms of a rating. Out of 10 per game. He's played 30 times, 6 goals and 2 assists from midfield, which I guess similarly to what you say about our players is if you've got 8 goal contributions, you're sort of borderline prolific in a side that struggles to find the back of the net. How good has he been?
He had a great start because Ben Tollett's one of these players who it's never quite worked out for him in the EFL for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a good career in non-league with various clubs, AFC File most recently,
Mm-hmm.
and looked really good. But he's never made that step up. Ben's 30, just turned 30 a few weeks ago. So we are kind of almost his last chance saloon of making it as an EFL player. And he started the season really well. He's a wide right-sided player.
Mm-hmm.
Come attacker, come winger, I would say. Plays out on the right hand side. I think he's got 11 goal contributions in all competitions, 8 goals
Mm-hmm.
and 3 assists. If you take all of the competitions into account, he's dropped off a little bit in the last half a dozen games or so. And going back, repeating the point, and I'll probably make the same point another 10 times before the end of this conversation about our lack of goals. I think Ben was one of the victims of the fact that we hadn't scored for a while. So a few games ago, he got benched, and he's not really played many minutes in the last 3 or 4 games for us in the league. So as far as on one hand, he's fresh. When he comes on, he's got a point to prove, but he is also our top scorer. I'd say 8 goals in all competitions, but he might not start on Saturday, despite our woes in front of goal.
Another similarity. Just replace Ben Tollett with the words Jaden Clark, who's got 7 in the league and 2 assists, yet has barely had a kick under John Coleman. And I understand we don't see everything that goes on in the training ground every day, but when you're a side that's crying out for someone who's got decent numbers, relatively speaking, and also someone that's surely playing with a modicum of confidence, and it's a question that I keep asking: is why he's not getting in the team, or getting more minutes off the bench and that type of thing. But like I say, we're not privy to what goes on the other 5 days of the week when we're not watching on a Saturday or a Tuesday. But yeah, lots of similarities. None of them are good ones, are they? Let's be honest. Unfortunately, they all sort of circle around the same theme, and that's a lack of goal scoring prowess. I don't want to touch on it too much because it is well documented, and I know not a lot has changed, but obviously the off the field issues are still ongoing. I think it was famous YouTuber Ellis Patton was at one of your games recently to try and shed some more light on the ownership issues. Obviously, I follow a lot of good people that support, work for, are associated with Morecambe, yourself being one, and so I get to read a lot of it. Is there any change or positive update, or is it still a case of just waiting and hoping?
Absolutely no change whatsoever, unfortunately. The last we heard in terms of any movement on ownership was when we got into the 3rd round of the FA Cup,
Mm-hmm.
when we beat Bradford, which was early in December. Bear in mind, we're now at the end of February. The prospective new owner took the unusual step of releasing a statement through official club channels to reveal who he was. There was speculation who he was online. So a gentleman called Kuljit Singh Momi, based in London, under a company called Punjab Warriors. He released a statement and said he was actively trying to buy the club. He was a legitimate businessman. He was doing all he could to facilitate the sale as quickly as possible, saying all the right things. Took the shine off the fact we'd just got into the 3rd round of the FA Cup because they released a statement on the Saturday night. But anyway, that's beside the point. Since then, it's all gone completely quiet. Now, our owner, the gentleman by the name of Jason Whittingham,
Mm-hmm.
is not renowned for his public communication, put it that way. However, he did give an interview to our colleagues on our local BBC station up here a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And it was a very lengthy interview. And in fairness to BBC Lancashire, they asked every possible question that they could have asked. They tried to get information out of him every which way they possibly could. And if you didn't know the situation at Morecambe and you heard Jason Whittingham speak for the very first time, you think, oh, he's quite an affable guy, actually. Yeah, he was all right,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't really give many answers, to be honest. Didn't really give any answers at all, apart from to say the same old, which we've heard now for, I think it's 911 days since the club was put up for sale. Same old, same old. The sale is progressing, albeit slowly. That is his go-to phrase. The sale is progressing, albeit slowly. There's never any detail. There's never any We've submitted documents to the EFL. We're going to hear back a week on Tuesday. None of that. It's just the sale is progressing, albeit slowly. Since that interview and since Mr. Momi put the thing out on our website in December, it has gone absolutely stone dead. So there's no progress. Absolutely no progress. What I can say, though, Matt, is that we released our accounts this week, and as expected, we published a significant loss.
Mm-hmm.
£1.2 million, second consecutive season that we've lost 1.2 million. Apparently, the League Two average loss is 1.5 million. So, swings and roundabouts and all that.
Okay.
But the one thing that struck me on the balance sheet was almost £300,000 in loan interest, borrowing interest repayments. And the main source of that is seemingly our owner has to borrow money to facilitate the day-to-day, week-to-week running of the club, and the charges put on top. So you can probably put two and two together and see where I might be heading with that one. But absolutely no progress. So we continue to limp along, basically. And the worry for me is if we somehow retain our Football League status. I mean, I say somehow, we're 2 points adrift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not overly impressed that Tranmere have sacked Nigel Adkins. That's come at completely the wrong time for us, because we were pinning our hopes on that a little bit, I think. And I actually do think we are going to stay up, which I'm sure we'll probably come to in a bit. But I worry what's going to happen in the summer, because as far as I'm aware, we've got enough money. Well, we've had to prove we've got enough funds to last until the end of the season, and we can pay our staff's wages and cover our bills until the end of May. What happens after that? I don't know. I don't think Jason Whittingham knows either. If a sale doesn't go through, I'd be worried that we'll be going full circle again. But one step at a time, one step at a time. All starts with 3 points on Saturday, doesn't it?
Cures everything, doesn't it? Yeah. And talking of that, just to cheer us up even more.
It's a right pity party, isn't it? I mean, I don't think it could be anything else, though, really.
Gills last won a home game on the 7th of December, and Morecambe last won an away game on Boxing Day. So that's combined a total of 11 games since that we've won on our own patch or you've won on your travel. So we won't do score predictions yet, and I don't want to give too much away, but it probably sort of pigeonholes it in one likely outcome. Anyway, how's Dave Tatonda? We always like to talk about David Tatonda. He cheers us
I knew
up.
you'd talk about Disco Dave. I knew it. I really like Dave. I mean, he's a great guy first and foremost. I say a great guy. I'll tell you a quick anecdote, actually. He broke my laptop a few games ago. When he shanked a clearance into the stand. We were playing away at Colchester. I'll say shanked, he smashed it. We were playing at Colchester, and the press area at Colchester is quite low down. It's about half a dozen rows from pitch level, about halfway inside one of the halves. And they had a bit of a counter-attack. Dave Tatonda came across to clear the ball, and he smashed it straight into the press area, and it smashed my laptop. Took me clean off air. Took me clean off air for a couple of minutes. So he owes me a new laptop. Dave, if you're listening, I'll send you the link to Argos. Anyway, that's beside the point.
I'll tag him on social media.
He knows I've told him already.
Laptop. There we go. Save Dave's laptop. That'll be the hashtag.
Took a big chunk out the screen and everything. Anyway, got to do what you got to do, haven't you? He's done well. He's done really well for us this season. I think there's been one or two occasions where perhaps he could have done a bit more on goals. There's a couple of times when he's not tracked a runner who's got into the box and then they've pulled the ball back and was conceded. He's not stopped a cross going in. And I think that's just standard League Two defensive ability, though, really, in a way, isn't it? You're playing in League Two for a reason. But I love Dave. I'd always have him in my first 11. And I expect him to start on Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be good to see. Like I say, I think, in one way, you know what you get with Dave, but in the other way, sometimes you have no idea what you're going to get with Dave, and that's probably what the attraction is, to be fair. But he's another one who plays with his heart on his sleeve, and in terms of effort and work rate, you won't be finding him wanting. So that could be an interesting battle. Certainly, if we can continue with this back three/back five, certainly with your high forwards as well, it'd be interesting how much space they potentially get in behind if possession does get turned over. Right, I'm going to try and cheer myself up and make you more miserable, if that's possible.
Oh, go on then.
I don't know which way I'm saying, which way is possible. You've only beaten us once. So similarly to what you said about our winless run, overall, we've played 13 times. We've won 8, drawn 4, and you've had 1 victory, and we've scored 23 to your 16. And at the Priestfield, you've never tasted victory. It's 6 games, 5 wins for the Gills and 1 draw. and you've only scored 4 times. So that's consistent with your season so far. 14 goals for us at over 2.5 per game is very much not consistent with what we do these days. What do we think the score is going to be?
I mean, that's filled me with loads of confidence when the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. on Saturday morning, Matt. So thanks very much indeed for that.
It's that realism and law of averages, isn't it? It's like, where are we trying to go? Like, which side are we trying to fall?
I always think that records are there to be broken, aren't they? And I don't really buy into bogey sides and all this kind of stuff. I think it's a game of football, and you've got to look at how it is on that particular day, really. You can't really take history into account. We've played against a John Coleman team many, many times, of course, when he was manager of Accrington and Rochdale. And Cole is a Morecambe legend as well. He's a Morecambe hero because he played most of his career for us in non-league. A prolific striker was John. I mean, you wouldn't think to look at him now, but he was a prolific non-league goal scorer in his playing days for us. So older members of the Morecambe fan base think of John Coleman very, very fondly indeed. When he moved into management, we've had some good battles with Accrington over the years. Won some, lost some. There's been touchline bust-ups and all sorts in between, really. So I'm delighted he's back in management, and I'm a little surprised that he's not turned you around a bit more than what I think even he expected was going to be the case when he took the role on. I think he's realising perhaps that the roles it's going to take a bit longer than what he thought to get his ideas across. That said, we are where we are in the table for a reason at this stage of the season. As I've said repeatedly, we're not scoring the goals that we should score. And I just hope on Saturday that we don't see a rinse and repeat of you'll be impressed with our general play. You'll think, oh, we're knocking it around quite well. It look nice and tight at the back. And then I've got to go back home and we've lost 1-0 again. My head says 0-0. Nailed on 0-0. Absolutely 0-0. We've got to pull a result out the bag from somewhere. We've still got to play some teams around us. So we've still got Carlisle, we've still got to play Harrogate, we've still got to play Barrow. And I would say yourselves now are in that mini league of 5 or 6 clubs, of which 2 could very easily go down. And I think at this stage of the season, it's hard to say which 2 they are going to be, despite the fact Carlisle and Morecambe have been anchored in the bottom 2 for quite a long time now. I think there's a lot of football still to be played. My head is 0-0, and my heart is Gillingham 0, Morecambe 1.
Yeah, again,
with the caveat, Matt, that you haven't won for 13 games, and that is just making me feel really, really uneasy. I'm quite encouraged by the fact that you've on this long not winning run, but I'm really nervous that it's got to come to an end sometime. You're surely not going to go the whole season and not win another game of football. But I suppose when another one goes and another one goes and another one goes, it becomes harder and harder to break it, doesn't it? So let's go Gillingham 0, Morecambe 1.
Well, I don't want to say I've copied you, but head, basically because we don't score goals, we don't win football matches, says 0-0. Everything points towards a very low scoring football match. And based on the fact that what we've said about us not winning at home, you not winning away for a while, it says goalless draw. Then the positive part of me says, this winless run has to end at some point, and we've got a good record against Morecambe, certainly at the Priestfield. So I say 1-0 to Gillingham. But like you, with the fear of 14th time lucky for us, is the scary part of 7th time lucky for you at Priestfield as well. So I've not really committed to anything, have I? I'm going to say 1-0 Gillingham. You're being positive, I'm being positive.
Positivity, Matt, that's all we've got left at the moment, though, isn't it? You know,
some call it delirium, I think, at this point.
Insanity, absolutely.
That as well,
absolutely.
I think we've covered it. Dave, it's been a pleasure as always, mate. And I think we do well to get through these episodes and make them fairly enjoyable, given the current circumstances at both clubs. And talking to people like you realises that we're probably in not as bad a shape as some. And I mean this genuinely, that I really hope, and you know I've said it before, and I'll say it 100 times again, that I hope Morecambe do get sorted out. Obviously, if it means one of us goes down, it will have to be you. But in terms of off the pitch stuff, I hope that you do get sorted. And if we can both stay up, it'll be brilliant, because I would miss these chats if it doesn't happen next season. And I genuinely mean that. Gills fans, Morecambe fans, you're all following Dave, aren't you? His details are in the description at the bottom of this video. If you're not, go and do it, because he's a brilliant bloke. He knows his stuff about his football club. Most importantly, he loves his football club. If there's anything in terms of what we can do as Gills fans to repost anything regarding the ownership situation, just give us a shout and we'll do that 100%, because no football fan should deserve losing their football club.
Really appreciate that.
Genuinely made it. You know that. Thanks for watching. As always, whether you're a Gills fan, a Morecambe fan, or a neutral, please consider hitting the like button and please keep pressing subscribe. I think we might have just ticked over 3,600. So none of you bastards unsubscribe now, make me look like a liar. We'll be back inside the Priestfield Stadium on Saturday for another match day live. Myself and Stocky, I think. No Ava, no Boz this week. Fingers crossed for a better performance and certainly a better result as we look to pull ourselves away from the relegation zone. But until next time, as always, the most important thing, up the Gills.